Among Hollow Knight's various meme and challenge speedruns, the Zero Geo run has always stuck out to me. Seems simple enough, right? Beat the game without collecting any Geo, how bad can it be? Well, it means no stags, no lantern, etc., and a unique maneuvering nightmare when it comes to enemy encounters. Well, it turns out the Zero Geo challenge is really punishing, and I'm no stranger to this. You might have seen me cover the Zero Geo run before, and if you have, you know it's not an easy task at all. Far from it. But some people don't stop at Zero Geo. Some people are named Monstah. You see, all the way back on the Christmas of 2020, Monstah, after being the first to complete the Zero Geo run, was also the first to complete the Zero Geo True Ending run. Zero Geo TE is quite a massive increase in difficulty, mainly due to the new arena sections being added. These include the Wraiths Arena, the Queen's Gardens Arena, and Trader Lord. And the run is also a lot longer, with a more restricted loadout and harder boss fights. Despite all this, Monstah managed to complete a run without too much trouble.
Finally.
However, the next natural step, the Zero Geo Godhome Ending run, isn't actually possible. There are many things preventing this. To name one, you're not actually able to unlock Pantheon 4, 5, and 2, due to the Geo requirements for No Eyes and Colosseums. So, you would think that would be the end of the story, right? Well, you're about a minute and 30 into a 20-minute long video, so that probably indicates the answer to that being no. Soon, people started thinking, if we can't do Zero Geo Godhome Ending, what is the maximum game completion possible without picking up any Geo? Well, to start, no nail upgrades removes 4%, Colos as well as Pantheon 2 and 4 remove another 5%, charms that cost Geo amount up to 14%, we can't get Dash Slash or Shade Stole, which is another 2%, cannot fight No Eyes due to no Lantern, which is another 1%, and lastly, we're locked out of a full health upgrade and 2 full vessel upgrades, another 3%. The answer, turns out, is 83%. And they're probably the hardest 83% you've ever seen. A 3-hour long run with tons of awkward arenas and dark rooms, low power builds, and, well, picking up a single piece of Geo kills your run. And unsurprisingly, Monstah was the first to pull it off. Also, I want to quickly say, consider subscribing if you want to. There's already like 63,000 of you, which is crazy, and I can't thank you enough. Enjoy the video. And when I said this run is difficult, I really meant it. Zero Geo and Zero Geo True Ending probably only have around a dozen spots where you run the risk of picking up Geo. I tried to count this one, and it's probably over 50. For example, think about how many grubs are locked behind an enemy that you need to kill. Is surviving the Geostorm that is Grubfather gonna be the hardest point of the run? No, but you know. Take a second to really think about how many things drop Geo in this game. Now, with a run this long and convoluted, there's really only one good way to show you, and that's by, well, showing you. So, today we're gonna take a look at Monstah's Zero Geo Max % completion. Also, if you're curious, because this is a challenge run and not a speed run, Monstah was using the skin mod, but it makes no effect on the run, so don't worry about it. The first thing that ends up being an issue in the Zero Geo run is of course the Aspid Arena, and this is going to be a common thing across this video, because anytime that you get locked into a room with enemies, you're going to have to kill those enemies, and those enemies are going to drop Geo, which puts you in a very awkward spot. In Zero Geo challenge runs, this is where most of the challenge comes from. And early game is pretty full of it, considering that we have the False Knight Arena as well as the Aspid Arena. Of course, Monstah kills False Knight for the %, but doesn't need any of the rewards. When you enter Ancestral Mound, you get hard saved, so while the boulder might seem like an insurmountable obstacle, you can simply kill it and then quit out to despawn all the Geo. He will have to return for Soul Catcher though, because it's a %. The same principle also applies to the Green Path boulder, where you can just leave the room. Green Path as an area is pretty cozy. The only thing to mention is the Moss Knights, where you can simply do the insta-kill to the left to spread the Geo in that direction. At this point, all you can really do in Green Path is, well, fight Hornet and get Dash, which is exactly what Monstah does. Fungal Wastes as an area is also pretty cozy when it comes to Geo. The only notable thing to mention is the inclusion of Shroomel Ogres, which Monstah does for the Charm Notch. Now, Charm Notches aren't actually percent, but they're just generally useful, and this one was worth getting. From this point, Monstah rushes straight to Mantis Claw, which is pretty standard aside from having to not kill any enemies. Once he gathers Claw, though, is where things start to get interesting routing-wise. Namely, it's time to get into the City of Tears, and notably we're gonna do this the good old-fashioned any percent way with a Shade Skip. However, that means we have to do Gruzmother, who drops 50 Geo upon being defeated. Now luckily, this just means we have to kill her in the corner, and even more luckily, the Gruzlings that she spawns don't actually drop Geo on the latest patches. Whew! That's gonna make things a lot easier. Salubra and Sly aren't really that interesting if you don't have any Geo, so Monstah benches and sets up the Shade Skip. Once he crosses the Blue Lake and unlocks the Dream Nail, he gets the Resting Ground Stag and stags back to Dirtmouth. Now, I probably should explain, the Resting Ground Stag is extremely important for routing in this run, because it's the only stag station outside of Dirtmouth that we can unlock without any Geo, due to needing a lever and not a toll. So, until we get the Dream Gate, stagging between Dirtmouth and Resting Grounds is our only way of fast traveling, aside from quitting out, of course. On the way to Howling Cliffs, he grabs Fury the Fallen and climbs back out through King's Pass. From here, he does basically a full sweep of the area, getting Cyclone Slash, killing Gorb, but notably, he skips out on skipping up to Stagnest. This is because there are 4 vessel fragments that cost Geo. The 2 ones from Sly, one blocked by the elevator toll in City of Tears, one in the arena above King's Station, and one in the 3000 Geo fountain. This fully prevents you from getting 2 full vessel fragments. This luckily allows Monstah to simply skip 2 vessel fragments of his choice, since a percent is only awarded for a full vessel. This is gonna come in handy later to skip the King's Station arena, which would have been really dangerous in the 0 Geo run. He summons the Grim Troop and does the Joni's Blessing Dark Room, which is the first really hard Dark Room in the run. From here on, it's City of Tears time, with another really awkward enemy arena in the Watcher's Spire. Following this, Monstah does Soul Sanctum. In Sanctum, the Soul Warrior drops 200 Geo, so it's really important that you pay attention to his health and make sure you kill him to the left. Now, in previous iterations of the 0 Geo run on patch 1221 for example, the Sanctum escape was one of the trickiest parts of the run due to you needing to dive through the breakable glass. However, on the current patches of the game, the fake dive, which is where you dive through a breakable glass without going through it by doing it right on the corner, is actually fully consistent. This makes things a lot easier. After this point, we really enter mid-game proper, so to say. This is the common structure of a lot of long Hollow Knight categories. The mid-game section being the section where you take a second pass through all of the areas that you've been to so far, and get all the things that you couldn't get with the abilities you had the first time around. Because this is such a long run, I'm going to be focusing explicitly on the things that are interesting regarding 0 Geo, and there is quite a lot to talk about here. The first one of these is the Howling Wraiths arena. Because the squits are airborne mobile targets, killing them allows the Geo to fly pretty much all over the place, which is really dangerous. The only semi-safe way to go about this is to stand in the top right corner and push the enemies away from you, killing them with fireballs. This isn't foolproof though, and Geo can really easily slip onto the top platform, which is really scary because remember, picking up a single piece of Geo finishes the run.
Okay.
Crystal Peak has its own unique set of Geo-related challenges as well. In every other category, the Crystal Guardian is a complete joke, but he actually poses a pretty big threat here. This is because when he dies, he sprays Geo over the entire floor. There is no way to avoid it. The only way to survive this in a 0 Geo run is to count his health carefully, and then once he's far away from you, kill him with a fireball and hang out on the wall until the Geo settles down. Monstah, you need to stop with these close calls. My heart can't take this. Another thing that's good to mention is, at this point in the run, we start getting very underpowered. Base Descending Dark becomes our only reasonable source of damage, because most other upgrades are completely locked behind Geo. Some of the fights in this run are really hard with this low gear, such as 0 Gear Tyrant, as you're seeing on screen. But once Monstah gathers 900 essence and unlocks the Dream Gate, the routing side of things becomes a lot more manageable. In long categories with a lot of things to collect, the Dream Gate becomes the crux of mid-game routing, because you can set the Dream Gate at a crossroads and then branch off multiple times into different routes. This process is basically rinsed and repeated in a bunch of different areas. For the sake of routing, Monstah gets wings pretty late in this run, which means that he has to do a primal aspid skip to get up to Hornet 2. And this almost ends very, very poorly.
Please grab the wall. Thank you.
After Hornet 2, Monstah goes down to the Abyss and gets the Abyss Shriek, which is gonna be our main source of damage from this point on. Because we don't get any nail upgrades or anything like that, the base D-Dark and base Abyss Shriek are gonna be our only source of decent damage. The next scary Geo segment, unironically, ends up being the Hormp Arena in Waterways, and this one isn't required for any particular reason, it's just for routing to get between Waterways and Fungal for Dashmaster, Bretta, etc. As for the actual approach, this one is pretty simple, you just fireball the enemies when they're far away from you. A little bit later, Monstah returns to Crystal Peak to do Crystal Guardian 2 and to get the grub. And I guess I haven't really mentioned that, but we do need to get all the grubs because Grubberfly's Elegy is a %. But Crystal Guardian 2 is basically what you expect it to be. It's an amped up version of the dangers of Crystal Guardian 1 because upon being killed, he also sprays a bunch of Geo across the entire room. So here, Monstah has to be super careful to count the HP of the boss and then kill him when he's far away and just bolt it up to the top right corner to hide.
Okay.
And when it comes to this challenge run, there's really nothing that's sacred, because our beloved Mossy, the Mossy boy, is a Geo risk. The same count health, fireball, and run away like a coward approach works really well here as well though. And while we can't do No Eyes due to needing Lantern, Monstah still has to do the Dark Room to reach the Mask Shard. After having cleaned out Green Path and Crystal Peak, Monstah moves on to what's definitely going to be the hardest section of the entire run. Because Queen's Gardens has a lot of Geo arenas, and Deep Nest has a lot of darkness. Straight off the bat, we have the Petra arena. This one is really scary, because the Petras are flying enemies that spray Geo everywhere. What also doesn't help is the limited ground. If the Geo covers those platforms, you're in trouble. For this one, Monstah makes a very, very clever setup though. Using the topography of the arena as a shield, he shrieks the 2 mantises in the top right of the arena, for a really fast and safe kill. That's only the beginning though, because following this, we have the Love Key arena. Because he's gonna have to backtrack through the room, he has to be really careful about how the Geo drops. And on the way out, he has a really, really close call.
Definitely scary.
And even now, it's not even close to over yet, because the hardest is yet to come, namely the main Queen's Gardens arena. Because of how many enemies there are in this one, it essentially becomes a floor's lava challenge, because pretty quickly, standing on the floor means picking up Geo. Monstah's main approach here is trying to kill the enemies to the left to create a safe spot on the ground that he can land on in case he needs to. This isn't foolproof though, because killing the Petras means the Geo can fly pretty much anywhere. And once you've already killed a few enemies, luring the enemies to the left means you having to come close to the Geo floor, only to then have to kill them and try to get back without landing. On top of that, you have to keep track of multiple enemies' health at once so that you make sure that you don't kill them when they're right next to you. I tried this arena myself just to see how hard it is, and it is super, super easy to mess up. But Monstah makes it through, and whew, we're through the Geo section. Now it's time for the Dark Room section. This run really doesn't go easy on you. Now, because the Lantern costs Geo and Monstah has to do Deepness stuff, we're gonna have some Dark Rooms. And when I say we have to do Dark Deep Nest, I don't mean like, oh, we're gonna have to do the 3 rooms to Hera, so scary! No, when I say Dark Deep Nest, I mean all of it. Think about it, you have to get all the grubs, you have to get Weaver Song, you have to do Galleon, you have to get Trampass, all in the dark. And the routing has to be super careful too, because you could kill enemies by accident in the darkness. And if you do that, they're gonna drop Geo, and you will lose the run. Are you picking up on why I said this is the hardest challenge run I've ever seen? Monstah does eventually get out of Deep Nest, because he is an absolute gamer. And the run continues. Kingdom's Edge is really standard in this challenge, so I'm not going to mention it, but City has a few really interesting geo spots. Because both right side city grubs are guarded. Monstah just has good setups for these and gets through them unscathed. The one in the spire is pretty much the same, except he has to be careful not to shriek the flying husk guard. Another really interesting thing in City is White Defender, which Monstah does because he needs the essence for Seer Ascension. Because he can't do No Eyes, he's also been gathering some Dream Trees along the way, just to make up for lost essence. Now, White Defender's a very late game fight, and Monstah does not have any nail upgrades, so it just takes a long time. After the Miwen has been beansed, he goes all the way up to Resting Grounds to do Flower Quest. And to be honest, Flower Quest is not the most interesting Flower Quest segment in this run, and that sounds really weird, but it'll make sense soon. The Flower Quest is really standard, except he gets a few grubs on the way. However, what comes right after is a little bit more scary. Because Queen's Gardens continues to deliver, Monstah's about to do Trader Lord. The issue with Trader Lord is that 3 Mantis Traders spawn before the fight, and all 3 of them drop plenty of Geo. It's kinda like the False Knight arena, in a way. The approach here is really similar. Monstah makes sure to bunch them all up in a corner and kill them on one side. After Trader Lord, he goes to the White Lady and gets the first King Soul fragment. After Flower Quest, Monstah ascends Seer, and then the real Flower Quest begins. Let me explain what I mean about that. Because Lifeblood Heart costs Geo, we're not able to get all 15 Lifeblood masks that we need to unlock the Lifeblood core. This forces Monstah to go on a Lifeblood safari, getting the Lifeblood cocoons in Hallow Nest as he goes around and cleans up the rest of the areas. And this is not easy. After equipping Joni's Blessing, he departs to King's Pass, where he gets the first Lifeblood cocoon. He then departs to Cliff to banish the Grim Troop, and following this, we're hit with one of the most unexpected Geo dangers in the entire run, Boulder Shell. First and foremost, the fake chest that you have to drop through drops a bit of Geo. It doesn't seem too dangerous, but this Geo could fall straight down through the hole and land at the bottom, so you have to be aware of what you're doing. Then come the boulders. Killing the right one is really easy, but the Geo completely blocks the tunnel, so Monstah has to kill the left one, stand awkwardly in the middle, jump over the left one's Geo, up to the higher little ledge, and then C-dash across. Now that he's gotten Boulder Shell, he's now stuck in that little tunnel and has to climb all the way around to get out. It's a nice reminder that in this run, even the tiniest, stupidest little things could be run killers. From here on out, he drops down into Green Path to get the Moss Knight Lifeblood Cocoon. After this, there's another risky Geo moment with the Moss Knight Grub, and following that, he goes all the way to the Lake of Un to get Shape of Un. From here, he Dream Gates out to his handy City of Tears Dream Gate and drops all the way down to the Abyss. And yes, remember, it's still a flower quest. If he gets hit, he loses his lifeblood and has to do it all again. It's miserable. He goes all the way down to the lifeblood door, does that, whew, we're done, cool, awesome, that's over with, and now it's time for White Palace. And in this run, White Palace is the most serene and peaceful area in the game. Aside from the sound of the buzzsaws, of course. But what I'm trying to say is that there's no Geo in this area, which means it's really easy. Oh, thank God he's done with White Palace. I can't stand that sound. Funny thing, after getting King Soul, Monstah completely skips out on getting Void Heart, because he's not gonna be able to do Pantheon 5 anyway. From here, he returns to his handy City Dream Gate, goes down into the waterways, and gets the best charm in the game. And from there, it's God Home time. What a weird run, isn't it? Monstah enters the God Home to do exactly Pantheon 1 and Pantheon 3 with 0 upgrades. Pantheon 2 is locked because of Oblobbles, and Pantheon 4 is locked because of No Eyes, so those percents are unavailable. And these Pantheons are really drawn out. I'm gonna be playing the God Home music in slow motion in the background for this segment, just for the meme. But yeah, he has 0 nail upgrades, so his nail deals 5 damage, and he has very limited spell ability due to only having Shriek and Dive and no Shaman Stone. It's slow. Like, for context, the nail binding sets your nail damage to 13. He has 5. Like, 5 minutes into Pantheon 1, he takes a close call to Oran Mato, but finishes it out. It's now Pantheon 3 time, and this one is a lot worse. The first few fights are slow, but pretty standard. And for everyone who's done all bindings Pantheon 5 or 3, you know how annoying Collector is when you don't have any nail damage. So Monstah has to deal with that. But he pulls it off and carries on into the Pantheon. As Monstah is the world record holder of 112% right now, Pantheons are not really an issue for him though, so he just carries on and makes his way to Sly. After a painstaking fight, he finishes off the Pantheon, and from here on out, the run is pretty free, except for one looming threat on the horizon. Monstah dreamgates out of Godhome, dreamgates out of Waterways into City, climbs all the way up to Resting Grounds as per usual, sits on the bench, equips a really weird charm build for no reason, and then proceeds onwards to the final challenge of the run. This has been what it's all building up to for all this time. There's only one source of Geo that could stop us now, and he has around frickin' 50 bajillion Geo ready, locked and loaded to throw at Monstah. It's time for the final boss, Grubfather. And then Monstah just stands in the corner and reloads the room once all the Geo's thrown. And while we wait for Monstah to collect this Geo, thank you for watching this far. I do a bunch of different Hollow Knight stuff, so if you like the video, subscribe if you want to. And yeah, let's get on to the end of the run. Anyway, after grabbing all the Grub rewards, Monstah enters the Black Egg Temple, and it's time to finish this. Almost 3 hours of nail binding but not nail upgrading speedrun shenanigans. It's time to complete the 0 Geo max percent speedrun. And it's stinky fluke time. Oh yeah. 83% game completion, 0 Geo collected, and Monstah finishes out the run. The first ever completion of 0 Geo max percent. What a remarkable and strange speedrun. And no, before you ask, I'm not trying this, I value my sanity. But shoutouts to Monstah, he's incredibly awesome and he does a lot of these types of weird things, on top of just being an incredibly awesome speedrunner and very, very inspirational figure to me. Anyway, that was the 0 Geo max percent challenge speedrun. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to subscribe, you can. We're well on our way to 100k. It would be absolutely crazy if I can reach that this year. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, anyway, have a nice day. Thank you for watching. Shoutouts to Monstah, and I'll see you later. Bye!